Hello, my name is Jenny Burris, and this is question number 3 of Truth and Reconciliation. For the summary, essentially, a lot of Canadian citizens are, and like the general public, is really clueless to what happened here in Canada with residential schools, what happened to the Indigenous people, what happened with the 60s scoop, and Canada's history and how it became Canada. It was a terrible way that it became Canada. Um, and with truth and reconciliation, the first step is coming to terms and talking about the truth. And for the Indigenous people, that truth could be very hard to talk about, but it is the first step. Getting your stories out there, and there was people who are trying to get their stories out there. And like in the past, people are telling their truth, but nobody was wanting to accept like that really happened, and they were like, no, you're lying, kind of thing. And but now with being, please speak your truth, it's hard because some will break down when they talk about it because of all the built up trauma. And being taught in schools, there's white privilege, and it's that colonizers were better than Indigenous people. They were savages. They did not live a civilized way. And like all these privileged white people, settlers, they came and took away all the land, took away the resources, put Indigenous people on these small bits of land, said, this is where you live now. And then started to take away their children without their consent. Public schools, yeah, like I started learning, and it was 2012, 2013. I was grade 3. I was 8 years old. That's when I started learning about residential schools in the Saskatoon Public School Division. It was hidden for a very long time. Like neither of my parents learned anything about in residential schools in school. Um, and there's a lot of myths with what they taught in school, like that Indigenous people were savages and that they were uncivilized. Um, that there was nothing to respect about Indigenous people because they were these savages. And now, with like the multiple generations of going to residential school and problems like that have happened generation to generation, it's led to like alcohol problems and being like, you can't parent because you're an alcoholic, or you can't parent because I think you can't parent, and they'll take away their babies in hospitals. Like, why? It's wrong. And for Indigenous people to be able to talk their truth and spread awareness, they need to realize their own self-respect and respect themselves, because the multiple years of trauma has led them to believe, not everybody, but a lot, to believe like, I'm worthless. Why should I speak my truth? Nobody's going to listen. It's like, no, we want to hear your truth and we want to listen. My own opinion on this is, I'm Métis. My mom's and my biological dad's side is both Métis. On my mother's side, we went into hiding for multiple generations to avoid these events, to avoid residential schools, to avoid the 60s scoop. My family, I look white. So did my great grandparents, my mom, my grandma, my great grandparents. We were all pale skinned. And so we had that privilege of being like, oh, we're not native, we're white. No, we're not Métis, we're white. We're not those people, which therefore we've lost a lot of history because we've had to go into hiding. Like my great grandpa, we had no idea that he was Scottish Métis, until about 2 years ago. Same with my great grandma, his wife. We had an idea she was Métis, but we never truly knew until recently. Um, with my grandma, I'll never forget when I was a little girl, she told me we are Métis, but I had everything taken away from me because I married a white man. And with my grandma and I, it was something that we knew, but we never talked about because she was scared to talk about it. She grew up in Carrot River, where she could have been part of the 60s scoop. Um, she could have been taken away. Same with her sister. We don't know. For my family, with talking truth, anybody that knew the truth has now passed away. And so, with my family, the truth will never be spoken. We are trying to uncover it, but we will never know if family members attended residential schools, if children were taken away, because the people that did know are not passed, or they are now ill and they cannot talk about it. With one of my distant cousins, his granny, she attended residential schools, and she has admitted that she attended residential schools, but she has never opened up about it. She has never opened up about it to her grandson, my cousin, um, just because it is so painful for her to talk about. And I hope that she'll be able to talk her truth, but I don't think she ever will because of the trauma that it caused her. Relating this to interpreting and to deaf people, if you're interpreting for a deaf Indigenous person, it could be an extremely hard conversation to talk about. It could be incredibly emotional. You might be interpreting their truth or their mother's truth or their grandmother's truth that that person cannot share. And it could just be like mentally draining. And as an interpreter, you would need to be prepared for that at any moment. And not that it is the same, but Indigenous and deaf have experienced something that not all white people have, the oppression and the being pushed down and being hidden from the world and hiding the history and needing the truth to come out and needing Canada to realize that this has happened, this is the history, which a lot of people do not want to admit that these things have happened in Canada. It can be extremely hard, extremely emotional, and you need the right people to be able to listen to these because not everybody has ears to listen for the truth. And that's my opinion on truth and reconciliation. Thank you.